Hi, everyone, and welcome to Gladverse TV. My name is Laura Borland, and I am the host of this show that is dedicated to recognizing that the silver lining is always our North Star. Today, I'm super excited to welcome a co-collaborator of mine on the book Gladversity from last year. Her name is Donna Fields-Brown, and she's a recently published author of her autobiography, Finding Medusa, The Making of an Unlikely Rock Star, and her newest book, One Moonlit Night, is currently out. It's a fictional book, and it's a mystery, and a nail biter, from what I understand. She has also written articles that were published in several leading magazines, such as Huffington Post, Thrive Global, and Authority Magazine. Donna is an accomplished musician and had 2 albums released of the music she created in her 70s rock band, Medusa, that received worldwide acclaim. She was born in Chicago, Illinois, and currently lives in Pierce, Arizona. Donna, welcome. And I'm so delighted that you've chosen to do this show, mainly because I think your story of, in all of the 40 stories which were captured in the book Gladversity, yours stood out to me in the top 5, mainly because it's such a breadth of knowledge that you have, and just a wealth of experiences, and so different. Yet at the same time, you, to me, represent the biggest hero story of all, in the sense that you took a definite adversity and you made a decision to make life better for yourself. Can you just walk us through what life was like, before your adversity hit?
I was and still am a musician. Back in the 70s, I was in a garage rock band, which turned out to be actually my husband Gary's garage. That was how him and I met. I auditioned to get into his band, into his rock band, and played guitar and sang, did some backup vocals with the band for about 3 years. And then I decided that I decided to leave the band. We were playing, like just local gigs around the Chicago area.
Yeah.
And I thought, I'm really not making any money as a musician. So I decided to attend nursing school and left the band, became a nurse, and left my music far behind, or so I thought. And then 40 years later, my husband and I, Gary and I, got married. He was the lead guitar player of this rock band. And we got married, moved to Colorado, and I'm sitting at my desk one day doing boring nursing paperwork. And the phone rings, and this guy on the other end of the phone is asking for the music that I created with Medusa back in the 70s. He said, are you still playing this music? And I said,
wow.
Heck no. I mean, that was 40 years ago. That was back in the dinosaur ages.
Yeah.
And so I said, by the way, who are you and what do you want with this music? And how did you find out about our music? And he said, well, I found your 45. That was the only musical reproduction of our music that we created.
Yeah.
A 45. He said, I found it at a record convention. And he flipped over the music from 40 years prior. And he said, do you have any of the tapes of those recordings?
Oh my God.
Heck no, all we did was use one of those little crummy, portable tape recorder players. And we recorded our music in our drummer's basement on 4-track reel-to-reel tape.
Wow.
And I said, I have no idea what happened to those tapes. Luckily, our drummer, who also lived in Colorado, but we had not communicated with him for 20 years. Luckily, this producer, the guy who was talking to me on the phone, just happened to be a a producer from a record label back in Chicago, and he contacted Lee, our drummer.
Yeah.
And Lee had those tapes, those 4-track reel-to-reel tapes. So, very long story short, he sent those original tapes that we didn't even know if they still worked.
Right.
He sent those to Rob, this producer, and voila, a year later, our first album, First Step Beyond, was released. And much to our shock and amazement, it was receiving worldwide acclaim. People were
extraordinary.
They were contacting us from all over the world: Finland, Norway, Sweden, Germany, Amsterdam, Spain, and just flipping over our music. And we decided to reform the band. That was actually my idea. I said, hey, for people, look at all the attention that this music is getting 40 years after the fact. And I said, why don't we reform this band? And sure enough, the two members, the old drummer Lee and Pete, our singer, didn't want to take part in the reformation of the band. So we got new band members and went on tour, got mobbed wherever we played by kids young enough to be our grandchildren. I
love it.
Got a chance to play at South by Southwest, the internationally known music festival.
Yeah, I've exhibited there. It's an interesting show. Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, so we were just riding high for maybe about 2 years, and then the band split up again, unfortunately. Mm-hmm. And just after we recorded our second album, Rising from the Ashes, the drummer decides that he needs to leave the band, and then the singer left the band, and our band went to heck in a handbag.
I know, but it must have been amazing, though, to know that the music had such life, right? So here's something that you put aside in the 70s, and then it is reborn, and you get to experience a true rock star feel, which is what you're looking for in the 70s, but having the opportunity to really tour, right? Mm-hmm. And to see the world, and that is extraordinary.
Yeah, I mean, just the energy of our shows. Now, we were in our mid-60s. Wow. Well, my husband and I were in our 60s, and the other members of the band were in their late 40s, 50s. And here we are getting ready to retire. Yeah. We're lugging all this heavy equipment around the country and getting mobbed wherever we played.
That is crazy. And just like the best story about just coming back, right? So like that Return from the Ashes, I think was the name of the
Rising from the
Ashes. Yeah. Same kind of thing. Like, here is something that you're like, okay, well, that was our passion when we were young. We got practical. We did jobs we could have enjoyed, but it really wasn't where our heart was.
Right, exactly.
Having an opportunity to retire, and then just this moment of, oh my God, people really liked our music. What are the odds that it would show up at a record convention in the hands of someone who would appreciate your music? And then have them reach out to you, go through the due diligence to find you in order to go, look, I need to find out more of what you have. Yeah. That is really good stuff. So I know the music was a central part of you, and so was nursing, but you hit a stumbling block a few years back. Can you tell us what that was?
Yes, I developed a problem known as tinnitus, or ringing in the ears. Mm-hmm. And it all started with endometriosis, which I was finally diagnosed with. Mm. And that led to me undergoing a hysterectomy. And a couple months, I remember, after the hysterectomy, I was swimming with a friend, and I noticed this ringing sound in my ears that just came on all of a sudden. Yeah. And I asked this friend that I was with after we were sitting around the swimming pool. I asked her, "Do you hear that noise?" And she looked at me like I was from Mars. She goes, "What noise?" And I thought, this is very weird. So of course, this ringing does not stop. It's 24/7. And it was this horrendous high pitch ring. And it was interfering with my sleep. I was not able to sleep. I was not able to concentrate.
So it's like an alarm going off in your ear all day.
Yes, exactly. Okay. Doctors, the very first doctor I went to, he looked in my ears and he told me, he said, "Well, you have brain damage." True story. "You have brain damage. Just go home and learn to live with it." That was his exact words. He shook my hand and walked out of the room. And I was in a state of shock. I was like, wow.
I know. Cold.
Very, very cold. And I was so depressed that we lived in this 3-story house back in Colorado. And in the mid 90s, this is when I was diagnosed, 96.
Yeah.
And I laid in the dark in my bed in a fetal position. I just wanted nothing more than to just get myself out of the world. And because this noise was not stopping and was interfering with everything in my life. And so there I lay day after day in a fetal position, just not wanting to move, not wanting to live. Luckily, I had a very, very, very supportive husband, Gary.
Yeah.
And he did extensive research online, and he found this wonderful organization in Portland, Oregon, called American Tinnitus Association. And he showed it to me. He gathered all this information, a whole notebook of research that they were conducting, ongoing research on tinnitus. And there was nothing like this in Colorado. And he showed this to me. He goes, "Maybe you should contact them." And I thought, well, that means I have to get up out of bed and I have to
re-enter the world.
Re-enter the world of the living. And so I'm glad that I did. I got myself out of bed and got to the computer and made the phone call to ATA. And talked with this wonderful lady there named Barb. And she was the editor of Tinnitus Today, their quarterly newsletter that has all the ongoing research. Doctors write columns, audiologists, scientists, leading scientists that were conducting research at the time. And I talked with her on the phone, and she was very, very sympathetic. She was just this sympathetic shoulder that I could lean on.
Of course.
And at that same time, I was reading this phenomenal book. As a author, you tend to read a lot as well. And I was reading this phenomenal book called No Mountain Too High. It was about 17 breast cancer survivors climbed a 22,000-foot peak in Argentina called Aconcagua. And 4 of them reached the summit despite undergoing chemotherapy, mastectomies. It was just an absolutely riveting and inspiring story. And I thought, if breast cancer survivors, undergone everything that they've gone through, if they could climb this 22,000-foot peak, what's wrong with me? Other than this ringing in my ears, everything else on me was very functional. So I decided that I was going to, instead of succumbing to this problem and being victimized by this problem, wanting to off myself, I decided, all right, well, maybe there's a reason for me to live. Maybe I need to be a solution to this problem rather than, be struck down by this problem.
Of course.
And I talked to Barb. I called her up. I said, hey, has anybody ever done any climbs for ATA? Dead silence on the other end of the phone. She says, you're talking about mountain climbing? I said, you're you're right. I am talking about climbing a mountain. And she looked at me, or yeah, she told me at that time, she said, well, we've had a guy on a bike that did a bike ride,
Yeah.
but no, we've had no mountain climbers, and you would be the first one. And she said, are you sure you're prepared for something like this? And I said, well, yes, before tinnitus, I really loved being outdoors. I loved running, I loved hiking, I loved climbing the 14,000-foot peaks in Colorado that I was surrounded with. So yes, I do have experience, not technical climbing, like the climbs that I was considering on Mount Rainier. And
right.
I said, but guaranteed, I'm going to do a lot of training. And that's what I did. I trained my butt off.
I love this.
And I did actually two technical climbs on Mount Rainier, which is also 14,000 feet, but you start from 5,000 feet to get up to 14,000 feet. Whereas in Colorado, you start at 9,000 feet to get up to 14,000.
Right.
So the first climb that I did on Mount Rainier was in 2000. And this was a fundraiser, of course, for ATA. All proceeds donated to ATA for their continued research for a cure. Right. The first climb, I did not make the summit. I made it to about 11,000 feet. And then I just got so exhausted, I just couldn't continue. So the guides turned me back around, and I was very, very disappointed, because I was carrying this banner from American Tinnitus Association, and I wanted to bring it to the summit. Never happened. But I did raise $92,000 for that attempt alone. And 7 years later, I got up enough nerve to go back again to Mount Rainier. And this time I did make the summit and raised $350,000.
Absolutely phenomenal
for that attempt. My husband was behind the scenes. He was contacting all these, magazines, music magazines and hearing magazines, and doing all the PR work and getting people to kind of, hop on board to support this climb. And it was just a phenomenal experience. I really got to know people at ATA, got a chance to meet them. And they
were excited to meet you. I mean, I'm sure you're like the biggest fundraiser for them to date.
Well, yes. And I'm sure at that time, between the 3 climbs, the last climb that I did was on Mount Hood, and that raised another $52,000. In total, almost $500,000 was donated to American Tinnitus Association for their continued research for a cure.
And here's what I love about this story is that you decided, okay, I'm going through tinnitus. Here's a foundation that is, committed to helping people with that. But instead of just looking for a cure for yourself, you wanted to find a way to assist in the research, to provide funds for the research so that so many others could be helped. Yes. And I think that's a powerful testimony of the kindness of your spirit and your willingness, that kind of nurturing kind of thing, right? Where you're not thinking about self, but you're thinking about the community at large and who can benefit from that. But then again, Gary to me is like a rock star too, pun intended. I love Gary. He is, your biggest cheerleader. He
Yes.
saw you sinking, and he, quietly behind the scenes was doing his research so that you could climb out of that hole when you
Yeah.
were ready.
Yeah, I think, as the saying goes, behind every successful man, there's a powerful woman.
Vice
And
versa.
the same goes for, the opposite direction as well.
Yeah.
It takes two to tango. And the very first attempt, the very first climb that I did, Gary wasn't really too involved. I mean, he was looking at me going,
You're doing what?
You're doing what now? That people get killed doing that kind of stuff. And I thought, I'm willing to take that chance because I really, as you said, Laura, I really wanted to help others.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, I was a support group leader in Colorado for a support group for tinnitus.
Mm-hmm.
And I fielded phone calls from people all across the country with this problem, people who, like myself at one time, were suicidal.
Mm.
They needed a friendly voice to talk to tell them what was helpful for me. And that, I felt like I could reach out to them by telling them there is hope
Right.
for this problem and share what helped me. So,
Love that.
yeah, that's what it's all about, is not only trying to help yourself, but thinking beyond yourself and paying it forward, and trying to reach out to other people. So
sure. And I can just imagine just the curiosity of, okay, so a woman's going to do what? Climb Mount Rainier? Are you kidding? So there's also that, that there's no way she's going to be able to do it. And then you do it. And to me, Mount Rainier is probably one of the most beautiful. My brother and his wife, they were at the time she was going to med school, and they were living in Seattle. And I flew over that, and I was breathtaking.
Well, you should see it from the summit.
Oh my gosh!
Wow! Absolutely incredible. And Mount Hood as well.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Mount Hood in Oregon is 11,000 feet. A little bit over 11,000 feet. But boy, that was one heck of a still technical climb. And I was so thrilled to make it to the summit. And wow, I mean, that was personal fulfillment, personal accomplishment.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, you trained for it.
Yes.
You put in the sweat equity. So if you're making it to the top, right? And even that first attempt when you got to 11,000 feet and just, you were exhausted and wiped out. But then the fortitude to say, okay, you know what? I'm going to give myself a break. I'm not going to be so hard on myself, and I'm going to try, and I'm going to do it. And you did it. And in so doing, you raised an extraordinary amount of money than, the $5 and $10 donations that would normally come in for a foundation like that. And, you chose to do. And I think that is probably one of the strongest takeaways from your story, is that you made a conscious decision to do something about it, to take action. And I think that's just a powerful testament as to who you are. I wanted to ask you one thing, though. So the ATA has been doing this extensive research. Are there any new treatments out there that are helping tinnitus?
Yes. Back at that time in the mid-90s, there was a wonderful treatment, the only really effective treatment at that point was known as TRT. Mm-hmm. And that stands for tinnitus retraining therapy, which involved wearing white noise generators in your ears and going through what was called cognitive behavioral therapy, or CBT.
Okay.
I did from a distance. I did over the telephone because nothing like this was even available in Colorado. Yeah. It was available in Maryland. That was it.
Wow.
But nowadays, for example, I'm wearing hearing aids, and these hearing aids, they don't emit a white noise, but it helps my hearing because I discovered that I have this hearing loss. There's also, people can choose to wear these devices in their ears that are similar to the white noise generators that I was wearing back in the mid 90s. It's more, more technologically advanced at this point in time. And that's pretty much it at this point. That's treatment, or listening to music, which is what I do when I go to sleep at night. I just put on this special CD and listen to the music, and that serves as a distraction and helps me to fall asleep. So there are a lot more treatments out there now, and doctors are becoming more aware of this problem. And, ATA is still continuing their research. So I feel like I really need to keep supporting them. So who knows? I might decide to climb more mountains.
I love that. I think knowing that there are at least some treatments out there, not cures, but treatments out there that are at least providing some degree of relief for so many tinnitus sufferers across the world is definitely good to know. You mentioned at the start about you having endometriosis and having had a hysterectomy, and a few months afterwards discovering some challenges. My question is, is there a relationship in research that shows like a link between endometriosis and tinnitus?
Not that I know of, not directly,
Okay.
but it just really, women need to really be aware that they need to take charge of their bodies. If a doctor is recommending a hysterectomy, that's kind of a last resort, that somebody should decide on that drastic of a surgery. I was just so much in pain. It was years and years and years having so much pain, and definitely tinnitus, more of a genetic component or hereditary component.
Right.
I discovered at a much later stage in my life that my mom and my aunts all had tinnitus, and they never told us kids about that problem, nor did we even know what that was.
Right.
So yeah, more hereditary components than I'm aware of. I don't think there's a connection a direct connection between endometriosis and tinnitus.
Yeah. Perhaps not, but I do know. I also had a hysterectomy. I had a history of fibroids, and I was sick every month, just literally hemorrhaging the whole 9 yards. It was untenable, and I'd had 2 prior surgeries to remove fibroids, and they come back. And I made a decision. I was just sick of being sick and sick of being in pain, and I just said, "Look, I'm thinking about the quality of my life." And I did a total hysterectomy, and my body almost went, I can't even explain it to you. It was almost like I went into shock in some ways.
Yes.
In the sense that just new allergies took place. Like, my skin just completely changed. I wasn't doing any of the hormone-based stuff. And it took like a good 4 or 5 years to just kind of balance out. Like I became allergic to things I had no trouble eating before. And it's just interesting the kinds of reactions that our body takes when we remove such a critical part of our womanhood.
Yes. When women undergo a complete hysterectomy where the ovaries are removed as well, their body goes into menopause.
Yes.
And in probably, it sounds like both of our situations, we were in surgically induced menopause, and
Yes.
the body does go into shock because it has very little, if any, hormones
Yeah.
that normally supply our bodies and keep us young and
Right.
invigorated and in a good mood and
Yeah.
feeling like we're up for life.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Women need to be aware of that for sure.
Yeah, I think I learned so much about myself during that process too, because I couldn't. A lot of it just didn't make any sense. I knew the hot flashes were coming. I knew there were certain things that would happen, and I just was not prepared to start hormone replacement therapy. That was just like a non-starter for me. I'm just not taking the meds. I'm not taking any thyroid stuff. It's just not going to happen. But what I found was that again, just the visceral reaction. Even my nerve endings, the way how they, like I'd have numbness and tingling in various parts of my body as I was healing. And it was just an interesting discovery of my personhood. And so like it was a very different time for me. But at the end of the day, I do not regret it. The quality of life I had before that was terrible. Like
Wow.
my cycle was planned around the weekends so that I would be home,
Right.
be able to sleep for 3 days, with a heating pad and just be medicated. It was just ridiculous.
I
And
understand that heating pad.
yeah, yeah, it was
Yeah.
crazy, absolutely crazy. So, no, but back to the tinnitus. I really, the reason why I asked you, Donna, specifically to be a guest, because your story is the penultimate, like, hero story. It just is. I mean, here's a rock star turned nurse, you know, like falls into depression from tinnitus, has like a great support base with a husband who just goes, you know what, honey, just take a look at this. You take a look and you decide, you know what, I'm going to help as many people as possible. And then after you retire as a nurse, you get called up to go and do a tour. Like, like people have rediscovered the music that is in you, which is your passion. To have that passion rebirthed in your retirement years is extraordinary.
I think everybody needs to follow their passion because that's who you truly are.
I agree.
For me, who I basically am, I don't really think of myself per se as a hero, but I just think of myself as somebody who loves to follow their passion, who loves doing what I'm doing, especially playing music and being alive and being vital. Even at 70 years of age, yes, there is life after 70 years old, I'm here to tell you.
Well, I mean, 70 nowadays is not like my mom's 70 or my grandmother's 70. You know what I mean? It's like a different, like 70 is like 60, 55, 60.
Yes, the new 60.
Yeah, there's a lot more vitality. You dress differently. You know what I mean? They're just like a lot more fun and vibrant and active.
You can either choose. It's up to you. It's your choice. You can choose to be vital and active when people are telling you to go to the back of the line and stand over there. You're way too old to be doing the things you do. No, it's the things I love. So I'm gonna do it, by Jove.
I love it. I love it. And I personally, it's something that I say, and as the episodes air for this show, you'll hear me say it often. The same thing you just said. It's all about choice.
Yes.
How you choose to enter this world, how you choose to embrace your passions, how you choose to be with others. And I look at you, and you have chosen to do. You are a doer, right? You see a problem, you're like, oh, okay, well, they don't have enough money for research. Let me go learn how to climb. So I can, find an opportunity to raise money in a unique way, right? You write books so you can tell your stories, right? You write articles to share your journey through tinnitus to let others know they're not alone.
Exactly. Yes, I think that is a wonderful way to live your life and to leave a legacy.
Agreed.
Normally at younger ages, you don't think of legacy, but at this age, you definitely do. And you want to leave a good legacy for younger generations. And it's part of this stage of life as well. Generativity versus stagnation. You can either choose to be stagnant and non-productive and just in a vegetative state, or you could say, heck no, I'm going out, I'm climbing that mountain, I'm
Writing books
music.
and playing music. And all of those things, you have a whole body of legacy. You have music that will stay on to perpetuity. You have books that will stay on to perpetuity. And you have stories of your amazing work that will stay on to perpetuity. So that in itself, I think, is the highest honor.
Yes, definitely. This part of this story that I just shared with you, Laura, is in my first book, Finding Medusa, The Making of an Unlikely Rock Star. And it tells all the different things, all the different, nursing part of me, the pantomime, studying with Marcel Marceau.
That's crazy.
And the musician, the finding Medusa, finding this reconnection with myself as a musician, and then also in wanting to write the second book, which is a total departure from the first book. It's a murder mystery called One Moonlit Night. So just rediscovering the author in me as well, and writing, regenerating that love of writing that stayed with me since childhood. So it's rediscovery, definitely.
Yeah, but it comes from a mind that is always percolating, very much an imaginative space. Because I think people who write poetry, which in turn most times are what music lyrics are, right? It really is poetry. So people who can write stories within, the confines of, 4 words on a line and be able to tell that within a 3-minute song, there's tremendous power in trying to convey a vision for someone else. So I'm not surprised that you did like like you did the Finding Medusa about yourself, and then transition to, a fictional work, because that story has always been there, and so it's just really birthing that part of you that wants to stretch a little bit more.
Yeah, exactly.
You've done a nonfiction. I've got a fiction story here that an audience would love.
Yeah, somebody asked me, another interviewer asked me in a previous interview, where did these characters come from in the second book?
Yeah.
And in the dark, deep, dark recesses or closets of my mind, these characters came out and took on a life of their own. And that's what a fictional writer needs to do, is create this, this world, this believable, the characters need to be believable, as does the story.
Of course. I'm so looking forward to reading that book, because your story is just, it's a gift that keeps on giving, for sure.
Thank you.
Definitely. And Donna, thank you so much for your time. This is probably one of my favorite conversations. I could sit with you for hours.
Thanks, Laura. Thanks so much for inviting me to be part of your show. I really, really enjoy connecting and reconnecting with you.
Reconnecting, my friend. And give Gary my regards. And I'll see you next time. All right. So all of Donna's information is going to be available on the platform as well. So you can have links to purchase her books. You get to figure out who she is and all her amazing work, and just know that she is a phenomenal woman with a beautiful legacy.
Thank you. Thank you, Laura. Thanks so much.
All right. Take care.